My name is Julian, and I'm 28 years old. I'm sitting at a table with 80 people clapping while my father gives away the house I bought. The house I have paid the mortgage on for 10 years. He stands at the head of the banquet room, holding a crystal glass of champagne, toasting my younger sister Chloe and her new fiancé Bradley. He flashes a brilliant smile at the crowd and announces that Julian is a grown man now, and it is time he steps aside. He tells 80 cheering guests that I have 30 days to pack my bags and vacate the property so Chloe and Bradley can have the perfect wedding gift. A free 3-bedroom home in the suburbs. I sit at the end of the long table. I do not object. I watch my sister give me a tight, triumphant smile. My father claps his future son-in-law on the shoulder. The guests look at me with pity mixed with judgment. They see the freeloader older brother finally getting the boot. Let them look. My pulse is steady. I reach inside the breast pocket of my suit jacket and trace the edge of a folded piece of paper. They do not know what I am holding. They do not know I carry the lab results from an ancestry DNA test proving the golden child sitting at the center of the room shares 0 genetics with the man giving the toast. My mother Patricia had an affair 27 years ago, and I have the paperwork to prove it. Before I tell you how I dismantled their pristine illusion, please take a moment to like and subscribe to Sweet Karma Life. Tell me your age and where you are watching from in the comments below. I read every single one. If you have ever been the scapegoat in your own family, you will want to hear how I kept my house and handed them the most devastating truth imaginable. Now let me take you back to the moment the applause died down. The clinking of glasses echoes in the ballroom. The scent of roasted prime rib and expensive lilies hangs in the warm air. Bradley leans over and whispers something in Chloe's ear, making her giggle. He comes from money. He wears a tailored navy suit and looks at me like an obstacle he just successfully bypassed. My father takes his seat next to my mother. Patricia avoids my gaze. She keeps her eyes fixed on her silver salad fork, gripping the metal so tightly her knuckles turn white. She knows I handle the family finances. She knows I work as a financial auditor. She just assumes I will quietly accept this public eviction because I have spent my entire adult life fixing their financial disasters. When I turned 18, my father faced bankruptcy. He begged me to help save the family home. I worked crushing hours. I paid the property taxes. I covered the mortgage every single month for a decade out of my own bank account. The deed remained in his name because I trusted him. That was my first mistake. But as I sit here listening to the string quartet playing softly in the corner, I realize it will be his last mistake. The waiter clears my untouched dinner plate. I stand up and button my jacket. I need air. I need to calculate my next move. I walk out to the terrace overlooking the manicured golf course. The cool night wind hits my face. I pull out my phone and open my email inbox. The message is still there. The lab report Chloe carelessly ordered weeks ago because she wanted to brag about her European lineage to Bradley Country Club parents. She used the shared home network to register the kit. She forgot I managed that network. I strike a match and light a cigarette, watching the smoke drift into the dark sky. The glass patio door slides open behind me. It is Bradley. He steps outside holding a fresh drink. He does not offer me one. He leans against the stone railing and tells me he already has contractors lined up for next week to tear out the kitchen cabinets. He says he hopes I have an apartment lined up because they are not delaying the renovation for my convenience. I look at him. I look at the man who thinks he just secured a free estate. I take a slow drag of my cigarette and tell him he might want to hold off on the demolition. I crush the cigarette against the stone railing. Bradley laughs a dry, hollow sound and shakes his head. He tells me I am just stalling because I have nowhere to go. He turns his back and walks inside to rejoin the party, leaving me alone in the cold air. I do not follow him. I walk down the side stairs of the country club, bypass the valet, and find my 7-year-old sedan parked in the back lot. I start the engine. The dashboard clock reads 10:15. I am leaving my own sister engagement dinner early, and nobody will even notice I'm gone. The drive back to the suburbs takes 40 minutes. 40 minutes of dark, empty highway. This is the exact route I have driven every night for 10 years. When I was 18, my friends were packing for college dorms and attending frat parties. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of past due notices. My father's logistics business had folded. He sat across from me with red-rimmed eyes and told me the bank was foreclosing on the house. He said family protects family. He asked me to step up. I got a job working the night audit shift at a downtown hotel and took community college accounting classes during the day. I deposited every paycheck into a joint account. I paid the property taxes. I paid the home insurance. I paid the $2,400 mortgage every single month, while I worked graveyard shifts. Chloe received a brand new car for her Sweet 16. When she wanted to join a premium travel volleyball team, my parents suddenly found the thousands of dollars required for tournament fees. When she chose a private out-of-state university, they covered her sorority dues without blinking. 5 years ago, they used those recovered finances to buy themselves a luxury townhome across the city, leaving me alone in the house I had been paying for. They built a glass castle for her and used my spine as the scaffolding. I accepted it because I believed the house was my investment. The deed stayed in my father's name because I was too young to refinance when the crisis hit, and we never bothered to change the paperwork. I trusted the invisible contract of blood. I pull my sedan over to the shoulder of the empty highway. I put the car in park and turn off the headlights. The darkness swallows the cabin. For 10 years, I bled for that man. I gave up my 20s to save him from ruin. And tonight, he stood in front of 80 people smiling as he threw me out like a broken piece of furniture, just to impress his rich friends. A heavy, suffocating weight presses down on my chest. I close my eyes. I grip the leather steering wheel so hard my knuckles turn white and my joints ache. I allow myself exactly 60 seconds to mourn the father I thought I had. 60 seconds to feel the bitter, stinging betrayal of a son who realized he was never truly loved. The dashboard clock clicks to 10:45. The minute is up. I open my eyes. The grief is gone. The obedient son who just wanted to be enough is dead. When I look at the dark road ahead, my eyes are no longer filled with tears. They are the eyes of a predator who just spotted a weakness in the fence. I put the car back into drive and merge onto the highway. I am no longer a family member. I am an auditor, and I am going to collect my debt. That invisible contract of trust evaporated exactly 19 days ago. Chloe has been obsessed with Bradley family lineage since they started dating. His grandfather founded a regional bank. They have oil money and property in Martha Vineyard. Chloe felt inadequate. She ordered an ancestry DNA kit, hoping to uncover some hidden aristocratic European roots to impress her future mother-in-law. She registered the kit using the primary household email address. She forgot that I created that email account a decade ago to manage the utility bills. She forgot I still receive every notification. 19 days ago, an email pinged my phone with the subject line, "Your genetic results are ready." I opened the attached file while drinking my morning coffee. I scrolled past the geographic breakdown, expecting to see the standard mix of Western Europe. Then I reached the family matching section. The system cross-references your DNA with millions of other users to build a family tree. My father Richard took the same test 5 years ago for a medical study. I scanned the close matches section. Richard took the exact same test 5 years ago for a medical study, so his profile should have been at the very top. He was not there. The report showed 0% shared DNA with Richard. I stared at the screen until my phone went dark. My sister, the golden child, the one who inherited my father's supposed superior intellect and charm, was a biological stranger to him. But the system did show a new direct link. A close match to a first cousin, pointing straight to a wealthy local family with the surname Holloway. I spent the next 48 hours running background checks, pulling public records, and mapping the Holloway family tree. I narrowed the timeline down to a man named David Holloway. I found old country club newsletters featuring my mother and David side by side at charity golf tournaments 27 years ago. I grip the steering wheel as the memories fade and my neighborhood comes into view. The streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement. I turn the corner onto Elm Street and approach my property. The driveway is empty. The house is perfectly quiet. I unlock the front door and step into the silent hallway. The exhaustion of the last 10 years settles into my bones. I go upstairs and fall asleep in the dark. The morning sun cuts through the kitchen window, casting long, sharp shadows across the hardwood floor. I sit at the granite island, watching the dust motes dance in the light. I know every inch of this room. 7 years ago, I spent 3 weekends on my hands and knees sanding these oak boards. Every cabinet handle, every light fixture, every coat of paint represents a portion of my paycheck. Today the house feels different. The silence is thick and expectant. The lock on the front door clicks, the brass handle turns. My mother, Patricia, walks into my home without knocking. She wears a pressed navy linen dress and her signature pearl earrings. She carries a sleek leather folder tucked under her arm. She sets her folder on the marble counter and unzips it, pulling out a thick stack of stapled papers. She slides the document across the smooth stone surface until it stops inches from my coffee mug. I glance down. The bold black letters at the top of the page read, "Voluntary Transfer of Occupancy." It is a formal eviction dressed up as a polite family favor. Patricia uses a soft, gentle tone. She claims Chloe needs the stability of a permanent address, so Bradley and his wealthy parents will respect her. She points a manicured finger at the signature line and asks me to sign the paper, handing over the keys by the 30th of the month. She believes she can play the protective older brother card one last time. Before I can touch the pen, resting next to the document, a heavy diesel engine rumbles outside. A sleek black SUV parks in my driveway. Heavy, confident footsteps echo onto the porch, and the front door swings open again. Bradley walks into my kitchen, holding a digital laser tape measure. He ignores me entirely, acting like the new landlord, conducting a routine inspection. He tells my mother his interior designer wants an open concept layout, which means tearing down the custom cherry wood cabinets I installed. He points his red laser beam through the window at the ancient oak tree in the center of the yard. He says the tree has to go, and he already called a removal service for Monday morning. He finally turns his attention to me. He instructs me to have my furniture moved out by the 25th instead of the 30th. He claims the demolition crew charges a premium fee for scheduling delays. Patricia watches my face closely. She expects me to snap. She feeds on emotional reactions because anger makes people careless. I do not give her an emotional reaction. I reach out and pick up my ceramic mug, taking a slow, measured sip of the dark roast. I look at Bradley, treating my life work like a minor inconvenience. I look at my mother, hiding decades of deceit. I place the mug back down. I look directly at Bradley. I tell him nobody is cutting down that tree. I tell him he should go home and ask his fiancée about a man named David before he starts making landscaping decisions. Patricia freezes. The color drains from her face. Her hand drops to her side. The silence stretches out heavy and suffocating. I watch my mother process the name. I watch her realize that her perfectly constructed world is standing on a trap door and my hand is resting on the lever. She steps between us quickly. Her voice pitches higher, a desperate octave of damage control. She laughs, a breathless, frantic sound, and tells Bradley that I am just upset about the housing arrangement and speaking nonsense. She places her hand on Bradley's arm and pushes him toward the hallway. She tells him to go home and let her handle her difficult son. Bradley hesitates. He looks back and forth between my calm expression and my mother's pale, sweating face. He senses a shift in the power dynamic, but he cannot identify it. He pulls his arm away from Patricia, points a finger at me, and says, "We are not done here." He walks out the front door and speeds off in his SUV. Patricia turns to face me. The fake smile vanishes. Her eyes are dark and cold. The name David is a ghost she buried 27 years ago. She stops inches from the granite island. Her breathing is ragged. She asks me what I just did. I do not sign the paper. I align the pen perfectly parallel to the edge of the document. I do not raise my voice. I tell her I am just protecting my investment. Patricia searches my posture for a threat, but finds nothing, just a flat, calm surface. She tightens her grip on her leather folder. Her jaw clenches. She turns on her heel and walks out of the kitchen. She does not leave the house. I hear her high heels clicking sharply against the floorboards as she walks into the living room and sits heavily on the sofa. She is planting herself there, expecting to hear the sound of packing tape. I do not walk to the garage to fetch cardboard moving boxes. I do not pull out my phone to browse rental listings. I leave the unsigned documents sitting on the granite island. I walk into my home office and shut the door behind me. I kneel beside the heavy steel fireproof safe bolted to the floorboards. I spin the dial, input the combination, and pull the heavy metal door open. Inside, there are no family photo albums or sentimental keepsakes, just rows of thick, heavy-duty binders. I pull out the one labeled Elm Street Financial Ledger. I place it on my mahogany desk and open the thick cover. Inside, every single bank statement from the last 10 years is locked in a plastic sleeve. The property tax receipts are color-coded with bright red tabs. The maintenance invoices are organized chronologically, down to the exact hour. I run my index finger down a column of uninterrupted monthly mortgage payments, tracking the exact cent. People lie constantly. The black ink in this binder does not. I wake up my computer monitor and open my encrypted secure drive. I pull up the contact information for the sharpest real estate litigator in the county, a man who specializes in equitable interest and constructive trusts. I draft a new email. I start attaching the digital backups of my meticulously organized physical archives. 120 PDF documents load into the attachment bar. I attach a decade of wire transfers showing every single mortgage payment originating from my personal checking account. I attach the property tax receipts with my name on the billing address. I attach the invoices for the roof repair, the HVAC installation, and the plumbing upgrades, all paid by my credit card. The property deed might have my father's name printed on the top line, but the law cares about who actually funded the asset. I review the email, ensuring every piece of evidence is perfectly categorized. I move my mouse cursor over the send button. I click it. I am not preparing to pack my bags. I am preparing to drop a legal anvil on their perfect suburban illusion. I stare at the sent email confirmation on my computer monitor. The legal gears are turning. But protecting my financial asset is only half the equation. The other half requires dismantling the weapon they are using against me. I open a fresh spreadsheet on my primary monitor. I label the first column, Timeline of Discrepancies. I label the second column, Biological Variance. I arrange my dual screens, creating a digital war room. I pour myself another cup of black coffee and crack my knuckles. I am going to audit my own bloodline with the exact same ruthless precision I used to rip apart forged corporate supply contracts. The Ancestry DNA report remains open on my secondary monitor. I scroll past the geographic charts and focus on the close relatives list. The system highlights that exact first cousin match for Chloe. It connects her profile indisputably to the Holloway family tree. The Holloways are a legacy family in our city, known for commercial real estate development and private banking. I open the State Public Records database. I need to establish a precise timeline. A corporate auditor maps out timelines to find the exact moment a theft occurred. I map out the year Chloe was conceived. 27 years ago, my father Richard was struggling to keep his first logistics company afloat. He secured a massive contract requiring him to spend 10 months supervising a new supply chain in London. He flew across the Atlantic, leaving my mother Patricia alone in a sprawling suburban house. I pull up the digital archives of the local newspaper. I search the society pages and charity event logs from that specific year. Patricia has always craved status. While Richard was away, she joined the Valley Ridge Country Club. She volunteered for the annual Spring Gala Committee. I scan the archived articles. I find the committee roster printed in a faded digital scan. The chairman of the event was a man named David Holloway. I refine my search parameters. I type both their names into the photo archive database. The screen loads a series of grainy black and white images. I click on a photo taken at the gala fundraiser. The image expands, filling my monitor. Patricia stands next to David. They are holding crystal champagne flutes. David rests his hand flat against the bare skin of her lower back. The posture is intimate. It is the body language of two people who share a bed, not two people organizing a silent auction. I look at David Holloway. I look at the shape of his jawline. I look at the distinct arch of his eyebrows. I am staring at the masculine version of my sister Chloe. I hit the print command. The laser printer on the corner of my desk hums to life. It spits out the photograph. I place the warm paper on the glass surface of my desk. I pull up Chloe's birth certificate from the county registry. She was born exactly 9 months and 2 weeks after that spring gala. Richard flew back from London just days before the delivery. He signed the birth certificate. He paid the hospital bill. He raised another man-child believing she inherited his brilliance. I open a fresh manila folder. I place the printed photograph inside. I add the birth certificate. I add the highlighted genetic report. I am building a ledger of betrayal. I trace my finger over the edge of the folder. For 28 years, I was the designated failure. I was the child who had to earn every scrap of affection through grueling labor, while Chloe received unconditional worship simply for breathing. The entire dynamic was built on a foundation of guilt. Patricia knew she was passing off a fraudulent child. She overcompensated by turning Chloe into a princess and treating me like the hired help. The floorboards in the hallway creak. Heavy, rapid footsteps approach my office. Patricia did not leave the house after Bradley drove away. She waited in the living room, expecting me to pack my boxes. When she did not hear the sound of packing tape, she came looking for me. She stands in the doorway. The polished matriarch facade is cracking. Her jaw is tight. Her hands are curled into fists at her sides. She demands to know why I'm sitting at my desk instead of clearing out my bedroom. She says the contractors are arriving Monday morning, and she will not tolerate any delays. I do not answer her. I do not close the browser tabs on my monitor. I leave the newspaper archive open, displaying David Holloway's name in bold black text. I leave the printed photograph resting on the edge of the desk, right under the bright desk lamp. Patricia steps into the room. She intends to lecture me. She intends to use that sharp maternal tone that always made my father fall into line. She opens her mouth to speak, but her eyes catch the glow of the dual monitors. She sees the name typed into the search bar. She looks down at the desk. The light illuminates the black and white photograph of her and David standing together at the gala. The air leaves the room. Patricia stops walking. She stops breathing. I watch the physical reaction take over her body. The blood drains from her face, leaving her skin the color of ash. Her shoulders drop. The manicured hands that were curled into fists slowly open. Her fingers tremble. She stares at the photograph like it is a venomous snake coiled on my desk. The silence is heavy and suffocating. I lean back in my leather chair. I watch a woman realize that a secret she buried under decades of lies has just been exhumed. She slowly raises her head. The panic in her eyes morphs into a desperate cornered aggression. She steps closer to the desk, pointing a shaking finger at me. Her voice is a harsh, jagged whisper. She asks me what I think I am doing. She tells me I am playing a dangerous game. She says those records mean nothing, and nobody will believe a jealous, bitter son over a devoted wife. I remain perfectly still. I let her spin her narrative. She leans over the desk. She threatens me. She says if I show that piece of paper to anyone, she will ruin my life. She promises to tell Richard I forged the documents out of spite. She vows to have my father cut me out of the family forever. She says they will throw me onto the street with only the clothes on my back and ensure I never speak to my sister again. She paints a picture of my total isolation, expecting the threat of losing my family to force me into submission. I look at her trembling finger. I look at her pale, sweating face. I reach forward and close the manila folder, sealing the evidence inside. I slide the folder toward the center of the desk. I look up into her panicked eyes. I do not raise my voice. I speak with the quiet, measured tone of a professional auditor delivering a final verdict. I tell her she needs to reconsider her strategy. I tell her you cannot evict the person holding the keys to your destruction. I leave Patricia standing in my home office. Her silence is the most honest thing she has offered me in 28 years. I grab my coat and my car keys. I do not look back as I walk down the hallway and step out the front door. The morning air is crisp. I get into my sedan and head downtown. My destination is a tall building in the financial district. I ride the elevator to the 14th floor and walk through the glass double doors of Cole & Associates. Harris & Cole is a real estate litigator who specializes in messy property disputes. We sit across from each other at a wide mahogany conference table. The room smells of lemon polish and expensive coffee. I do not waste his time with emotional backstory. I hand him the thick stack of printed bank statements, the tax receipts, and the wire transfer confirmations. Harrison puts on his reading glasses. He flips through the pages. The steady rhythm of paper turning fills the quiet room. He looks at the decade of uninterrupted payments originating from my personal checking account. He traces his pen over the column showing the property taxes paid in my name. He takes off his glasses and sets them on the table. He leans back in his leather chair. He explains the mechanics of a constructive trust. In our state, a name printed on a property deed is a strong indicator of ownership, but it is not a bulletproof shield. When one party pays the entirety of the mortgage, funds the maintenance, and covers the property taxes, while the titled owner contributes nothing, the law recognizes an equitable interest. I did not just rent the property. I preserved the asset from foreclosure. I built the equity. Richard cannot snap his fingers and transfer a decade of my financial labor to his daughter. Harrison slides a legal pad across the table. He drafts the outline of our counteroffensive. We are not just going to wait years for a quiet title lawsuit. We are drafting a massive civil suit against Richard for constructive fraud and unjust enrichment. We have the paper trail to prove he used my finances under false pretenses to enrich his own asset. To handle the immediate threat of Bradley demolition crew, Harrison files for an emergency court injunction. With my documented 10-year residency and financial equitable interest, the judge grants a temporary restraining order. Anyone who attempts to alter the property or remove my belongings before a formal court resolution will face immediate arrest for violating a judicial order. I sign the retainer agreement. I watch Harrison stamp the documents. I have armed myself with the full weight of the state property code. I thank him and take the elevator back down to the street level. I stop at a corner cafe to grab a sandwich before heading back to the suburbs. I sit at a small metal table near the window and pull out my phone. A notification pops up on my screen. Chloe just posted a new photo on her social media feed. I open the application. The image loads bright and colorful. Chloe and Bradley are standing on my front porch. My porch. She is holding up a large novelty brass key with a giant decorative ribbon tied around it. Bradley has his arm wrapped around her waist, looking smug and victorious. The caption reads, "Cheers to our beautiful new home. A million thanks to the most amazing father in the world for the ultimate wedding gift. We cannot wait to start renovations this week." I stare at the hashtags. She tagged the local interior design firm. She tagged a luxury appliance brand. She tagged a landscaping company. She is publicly claiming my life work to impress her followers. I scroll through the comments. Dozens of people are congratulating her. Her friends are praising Richard for being such a generous dad. They are asking when the housewarming party is. Not a single person questions where her older brother is going to live. Not a single person knows that the man they are praising is giving away stolen goods. A younger version of myself might have felt a surge of hot defensive anger. A younger Julian might have typed a furious comment exposing the truth right there on the screen. But anger is sloppy. Anger gives the opponent a chance to play the victim. I do not feel anger. I feel a cold, sharp clarity. I take a screenshot of the post and save it to my phone. Let her build her digital castle. The higher she builds the illusion, the harder the impact will be when it shatters. I finish my coffee and make a phone call. I dial the number for a premium courier service I use at the auditing firm. A dispatcher answers. I request a specialized delivery for next weekend. I tell them I need a bonded courier to hand-deliver 3 separate manila envelopes to a specific address at a specific time. The dispatcher asks for the destination. I give them the address of my own house. I schedule the drop-off for the exact middle of the upcoming bridal shower and housewarming event Chloe has planned in my backyard. The dispatcher confirms the rate and the time window. I hang up the phone. The trap is now fully set. I have the legal paperwork. I have the genetic truth. I have the timeline mapped out down to the minute. I drive back to Elm Street. The black SUV is gone from my driveway. Patricia's car is gone too. The house is quiet again. I unlock the front door and step into the silent hallway. The silence feels different now. It does not feel heavy or oppressive. It feels like the quiet before a storm. I walk into the kitchen and see the voluntary transfer of occupancy form still sitting on the granite island where Patricia left it. It looks flimsy now, a useless piece of paper drafted by people who think manipulation can override hard data. I fold the document in half and drop it into the trash can. I spend the rest of the afternoon organizing my home office. I pack away my sensitive work files and lock my external hard drives in a fireproof safe. If Bradley attempts to send contractors into my home while I am at work, I need to ensure my livelihood is secure. I call a local security company and schedule the installation of 3 discrete cameras for the exterior of the house. I want a digital record of anyone who steps onto my property. My phone buzzes in my pocket. It is a text message from Richard. He tells me the rehearsal dinner is tomorrow night at an upscale downtown restaurant. He commands me to be there. He says he expects me to smile, shake hands, and support my sister in front of Bradley's parents. He adds a final sentence, warning me not to embarrass the family. I read the text twice. He wants a performance. He wants me to sit quietly at the table and play the role of the defeated son, while the groom family looks down on me. He thinks he holds all the cards. He thinks I am returning to his arena to surrender. I type a simple 2-word reply. I will be there. I lock my phone and set it on the counter. The rehearsal dinner is the perfect testing ground. I need to see how tightly Richard clings to his pride, and I need to see if Patricia has the nerve to look me in the eye. They invited the auditor to the banquet. They have no idea I am coming to audit the entire foundation of their lives. The sun begins to set, casting long orange shadows across the hardwood floor. I walk into my bedroom and open my closet. I pull out a charcoal gray suit. The same suit I wore to court when I defended my firm in a corporate dispute 2 years ago. It is the armor I wear when I am preparing to dismantle a lie. I lay the suit on the bed. I polish my shoes. Downstairs, the kitchen clock ticks loudly. Every second that passes brings us closer to the collision. Richard is practicing his toasts. Chloe is picking out her dress. Patricia is likely pacing her bedroom floor, terrified of the ghost she saw on my computer monitor. They are all playing their parts in a play that I have already canceled. I turn off the bedroom light and listen to the quiet hum of my house, my fortress. They are going to learn what happens when you try to evict the man who keeps the receipts. The valet takes the keys to my 7-year-old sedan. The attendant does not hide his disdain as he parks my faded vehicle next to a polished line of European sports cars and luxury SUVs. I adjust the cuffs of my charcoal gray suit and walk through the heavy brass doors of the Wellington. It is an exclusive downtown establishment where the menus do not print prices and the lighting is kept intentionally dim to hide the wrinkles of the wealthy patrons. Tonight, the groom family is paying the bill. They reserve the private dining room in the back, isolated from the noise of the main floor by thick velvet curtains. I step into the room. A long mahogany table sits beneath a cascading crystal chandelier. The seating arrangement tells the entire story of the power dynamic. Bradley sits at the head of the table. His parents, Thomas and Victoria, sit to his right. They radiate old money confidence. Victoria wears a subtle diamond tennis necklace and sits with perfect, rigid posture. Thomas swirls a glass of aged scotch, looking over the room with the casual arrogance of a man who has never been told no. Chloe sits to Bradley's left, glowing under the expensive lighting, acting every bit the part of the refined heiress. Next to Chloe is my father, Richard. He is leaning across the table, laughing too loudly at a mediocre anecdote Thomas just finished telling. Richard is drinking his wine too fast. He is desperate. When his logistics business collapsed a decade ago, he lost his country club membership. He lost his audience. He lost his illusion of superiority. For 10 years, he has lived in a house funded by my paychecks while pretending he is still a captain of industry. This wedding is his ticket back into the inner circle. He needs Thomas to see him as an equal. Patricia sits directly across from me. She wears a stiff silk blouse. She does not look at me when I pull out my chair and sit down. She keeps her eyes fixed on the linen napkins. She is the only person at this table who knows the foundation of this celebration is built on a fractured lie. Every time a waiter drops a plate or a glass clinks, she flinches. She is waiting for the floor to drop out from under her. The first 2 courses pass in relative peace. The waiters move silently around us, replacing empty oyster shells with plates of seared scallops. I eat my food and observe the room like a financial auditor examining a suspicious ledger. I watch the liabilities and the hidden deficits. I watch Chloe mirror Victoria posture, trying to mimic the old money grace she desperately wants to claim. When the main course arrives, Thomas taps his silver fork against his wine glass. The room falls silent. He stands up to deliver a toast. He speaks with a deep, booming voice, accustomed to commanding boardrooms. He talks about the importance of legacy. He looks at Bradley and Chloe and smiles. He says that generational wealth is not just about real estate or bank accounts. He claims it is about continuity. He states it is about knowing exactly who sits at your table and trusting the bloodline. He talks about his own grandfather who founded their family bank and how important it is to pass down strong, capable genetics to the next generation. Richard cannot help himself. The mention of strong genetics is a hook he cannot resist. He needs to prove his own worth to Thomas. He needs to insert his ego into the narrative. Richard stands up, holding his own glass of red wine. He nods eagerly at Thomas. He agrees loudly. He gestures toward Chloe with his free hand. He tells the room that Chloe inherited his raw talent. He brags about her private university degree and her sharp social instincts. He claims she has the trademark intelligence of his side of the family. Then he makes his fatal error. He needs a contrast to highlight Chloe's brilliance, so he uses his favorite baseline for failure. Me. Richard points his wine glass down the table toward me. He gives Thomas a conspiratorial, knowing look. He says Julian is a hard worker, but he takes after his mother's side, plodding, safe, slow to adapt. He tells the groom parents that I am the mule of the family, while Chloe is the thoroughbred. He laughs, a dry, dismissive sound. He says you do not enter a mule in a race and expect to win. A few polite chuckles ripple across the table. Bradley smirks. Chloe looks down at her plate, hiding a satisfied smile. They expect me to swallow the insult. They expect the scapegoat to absorb the blow to maintain the peace. I place my silver fork down on the porcelain plate. The sharp clink cuts through the fading laughter. I pick up my linen napkin and wipe my mouth. I do not look at Thomas or Bradley. I lock my eyes directly on Richard. I let a heavy, suffocating silence build in the room. I lean forward, resting my forearms on the mahogany table. I speak in a calm, even tone that carries all the way to the velvet curtains. Your genetics. Are you sure about that? The words hang in the air, cold and precise. Richard stops smiling. His brow furrows in confusion. He opens his mouth to ask what I mean, but the sound of shattering glass interrupts him. Patricia drops her wine glass. The thin crystal shatters against her dinner plate. A pool of dark red wine bleeds across the pristine white tablecloth, creeping toward Richard's silver cutlery. Patricia gasps. Her hands are shaking violently. She grabs her napkin and tries to dab at the spreading red stain. Her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. The entire table stares at her. The elegant illusion of the dinner cracks. Victoria recoils, pulling her chair back to avoid the dripping wine. Thomas frowns. Richard looks at his wife. He looks at her pale, terrified face. Then he looks back at me. The confusion in his eyes deepens, morphing into a quiet, creeping suspicion. He saw the panic. He knows my question triggered it, but his ego refuses to assemble the puzzle pieces. Bradley stands up. His chair scrapes harshly against the hardwood floor. His face is flushed with sudden anger. He hates losing control of a room, and he hates public embarrassment. He throws his napkin onto his chair and marches down the length of the table. He stops right behind my shoulder. He leans down and grips the fabric of my suit jacket near my collarbone. His grip is tight. He speaks in a low, threatening whisper meant only for me. He tells me to get up. He tells me we are going outside, right now. I do not resist. I calmly stand up, brushing his hand off my jacket. I follow him through the velvet curtains and out a side door leading to a private brick patio. The night air is cold, hitting my face the moment the heavy door swings shut behind us. We are alone in the narrow alley beside the restaurant. The faint sound of city traffic hums in the distance. Bradley turns on me. He closes the distance, stepping into my personal space, trying to use his height advantage. His jaw is clenched. He points a finger inches from my chest. He demands to know what kind of game I am playing. He accuses me of trying to sabotage his rehearsal dinner out of petty jealousy over the house. He does not wait for an answer. He issues his ultimatum. He says he is calling his security contractor right now. He tells me he is having the locks on my house changed tonight while I am standing in this alley. He says if I try to enter the property, he will have the police arrest me for trespassing. He calls me a pathetic squatter who cannot handle watching his sister succeed. I stand perfectly still on the damp bricks. I let him vent his inherited arrogance. I watch a man who believes his bank account makes him invincible. I reach into my pocket and pull out my valet ticket. I look at the small piece of cardboard, then look up at Bradley. I tell him changing the locks will not fix his current problem. I tell him the house is the least of his concerns. I step around him, walking toward the front of the restaurant to retrieve my car. I pause for a single second, looking back over my shoulder. I highly suggest you sign a prenuptial agreement before you walk down that aisle. The digital clock on my nightstand reads 2:14 in the morning. The house is entirely dark. The ambient light from the street lamp outside casts long gray shadows across my bedroom walls. I am sitting in the armchair by the window, still wearing my suit trousers and my dress shirt. I did not bother turning on a lamp. I am watching the quiet street, playing the events of the rehearsal dinner over in my head. Bradley threatening me in the alley, Richard looking confused, Patricia dropping her wine glass. The floorboards in the hallway groan under a slow, deliberate weight. Someone is pacing outside my door. I do not move. I watch the brass doorknob slowly turn. The door creaks open. A sliver of pale light from the hallway cuts across the carpet. Patricia stands in the doorway. She is not wearing her stiff silk blouse or her signature pearls. She wears a faded cotton robe pulled tight around her waist. Her hair is unpinned, falling around her shoulders in messy strands. She looks 10 years older than she did at the restaurant. She steps inside and pushes the door shut behind her, plunging the room back into heavy shadows. She does not turn on the light. She wants the darkness. Manipulators always prefer the dark when they are about to ask you to betray yourself. She stands near the foot of my bed. I remain seated in the armchair, blending into the shadows. She cannot see my face clearly. She does not weep. She crosses her arms and tries to assert control. She uses her soft, disappointed tone. The one that implies I am the one who is crazy, and she is just a worried mother trying to save me from myself. She tells me I am being paranoid. She says that printout I left on my desk is an obvious internet scam, or a glitch in the system. She asks me if I am really going to destroy my own family over a simple real estate disagreement. She says my anger over the house is making me delusional. I do not argue with her. I reach over to the small table next to my armchair. I pick up a manila folder I prepared earlier. I open it in the dark. I pull out a piece of paper and hold it up. The pale light from the hallway illuminates the bold black text. I read it out loud. It is a copy of Richard's flight itinerary from 27 years ago, showing his departure to London. I pull out a second paper. Chloe's birth certificate. I tell Patricia to do the math. I calculate the exact weeks. I remind her that Richard was thousands of miles across the Atlantic Ocean during the exact month of conception. I tell her the timeline is airtight. The disappointed mother act vanishes. The air leaves her lungs in a sharp gasp. She begins to weep. It is not the loud theatrical crying she uses to get Richard attention. It is a quiet, ragged sound. The sound of a woman watching the walls of her fortress crumble. Her voice shakes. She finally admits David Holloway is Chloe's biological father. She confesses to the affair. She claims she was lonely and terrified about the failing logistics company. She is trying to rewrite a calculated betrayal into a tragic romance. She wants me to see her as a victim of circumstance rather than the architect of a 30-year fraud. She steps closer to my chair. She drops to her knees on the carpet. The woman who has treated me like an indentured servant my entire life is kneeling at my feet. She begs me to destroy the printed photograph, the genetic report, and the flight records. She reaches out and grips the fabric of my trousers. Her hands are ice cold. She looks up at me with wet, desperate eyes. She shifts her tactic from confession to emotional extortion. She brings up my father. She reminds me how fragile Richard's ego is. She says Richard built his entire identity around being a superior intellect and a patriarch. She tells me that if he finds out his golden child belongs to another man, the humiliation will break him. She says he will not survive the public shame. She looks me dead in the eye and tells me that if I release the documents, Richard will likely lose everything and collapse. She places the burden of his survival squarely on my shoulders. It is a masterclass in psychological warfare. Then she pivots to her daughter. She says Chloe is innocent. She claims Chloe has no idea about her true parentage. She tells me the Holloway family is ruthless and obsessed with their pristine reputation. If Thomas and Victoria find out they are welcoming an illegitimate child into their lineage, they will cancel the wedding immediately. Chloe will be cast out, humiliated in front of our entire social circle. Patricia tightens her grip on my leg. She delivers her final desperate pitch. The bribe. She lowers her voice to a frantic whisper. She tells me to let the wedding happen. She says once Chloe is legally married to Bradley, she will have access to the Holloway family trust. Patricia promises me that she will quietly funnel money back to me. She swears she will secretly repay me for every single mortgage payment I ever made. She tells me I can buy a new house, a better house, and leave this entire mess behind. All I have to do is stay quiet, pack my bags, and let them steal my property for a few more months. I sit perfectly still. I listen to her breathing heavily in the dark. I dissect the anatomy of her proposal. She wants me to surrender the home I paid for so her affair child can secure a billionaire heir. Then she plans to use the groom money to quietly pay me off, thereby turning me into an accomplice in her fraud. She expects me to finance her lies and accept stolen hush money as my reward. I lean forward. I place my hands on the armrests of my chair. I do not feel pity for the weeping woman on the floor. I look at her and see a parasite trying to negotiate a new host. I speak in a low, steady tone. I ask her a very simple question. If you knew the truth this whole time, why did you let him kick me out of my own house? The crying stops instantly. The silence in the room becomes absolute. It is a heavy, suffocating vacuum. I ask it again. I tell her she knew I paid the mortgage. She knew the sacrifices I made to keep a roof over her head. She knew Chloe was not Richard's daughter. Yet she sat at that engagement dinner and watched her husband publicly humiliate me. She watched him give my life work to the child of her lover. I asked her why she did not pull Richard aside and stop him. Why did she let the trap snap shut on my neck? Patricia remains frozen on the carpet. She opens her mouth, but no words come out. Her brain is frantically searching for a justifiable excuse. She is searching for a way to spin the narrative to make herself the martyr again. But there is no spin. The objective reality is sitting right in front of us. She did not stop Richard because my pain was a convenient price to pay for her safety. She let him evict me because challenging him might have drawn attention to the past. She threw me under the bus to protect her perfect illusion. She would have gladly watched me become homeless if it meant her secrets stayed buried. I stand up. I pull my leg away from her grasp. She falls forward slightly, her hands hitting the floor. I look down at her. I do not shout. I do not curse. I deliver the final audit of our relationship. I tell her the transaction is declined. I walk over to the bedroom door and open it. The pale light from the hallway spills over her kneeling figure. I point to the threshold. I tell her to get out of my room. Patricia slowly climbs to her feet. The vulnerability vanishes, replaced by a cold, hollow realization. She knows the negotiation failed. She knows she possesses no leverage. She wraps her faded robe tightly around her chest and walks past me without making eye contact. She steps into the hallway. I close the door and turn the deadbolt. The sharp click of the lock echoes loudly. I walk over to my closet and pull out a travel duffel bag. I do not pack my clothes. I pack my external hard drives. I pack the manila folders holding the bank statements, the tax records, and the genetic lab results. I secure the core evidence. The sun will rise in a few hours. Today is Friday. The grand bridal shower and housewarming party is scheduled for Saturday afternoon, right in my backyard. They hired a catering company. They rented white canvas tents. They invited the entire Holloway family to celebrate the handover of my property. I lie down on my bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The emotional ties are completely severed. Patricia came into my room, hoping to find a son she could manipulate. She found a landlord preparing an eviction. The stage is set for tomorrow. They built the arena themselves. Now I am going to bring the fire. Saturday afternoon arrives, with bright sunlight and a crisp breeze. The caterers pull their white delivery vans into my driveway at 9 in the morning. They unload heavy canvas tents and aluminum frames. They hammer metal stakes into the grass I watered and fertilized for a decade. I sit in my second-floor home office, watching the invasion through my window. I drink my dark roast coffee and monitor the new security camera feeds on my computer screen. I wear my charcoal gray suit. I do not go downstairs to help them set up the folding chairs or arrange the floral centerpieces. I let them build the stage. By 2 o'clock, the backyard is full. 80 guests mingle under the white canopies. Waiters in black vests circulate, carrying silver trays loaded with champagne flutes and bacon-wrapped dates. A jazz trio plays smoothly in the corner near the patio heater. The scene is perfectly orchestrated to project wealth and unbroken stability. Chloe wears a flowing white sundress. She floats between groups of guests, laughing brightly, linking arms with her future mother-in-law, Victoria. Bradley stands near the outdoor bar, smoking a premium cigar, with his groomsmen acting like the undisputed lord of the manor. Richard is in his element. He stands near the center of the lawn, surrounded by Thomas Holloway and several other wealthy bankers. Richard is holding a drink, talking loudly, using expansive hand gestures. He plays the role of the generous, self-made patriarch, giving away a prime piece of suburban real estate. He believes he is cementing his legacy in their elite social circle. Patricia is the only glitch in the pristine picture. She stands near the edge of the stone patio, clutching a glass of sparkling water. She wears a floral silk dress, but her skin is pale gray. She keeps scanning the yard, jumping every time a waiter drops a fork or a guest laughs too loudly. She knows I am inside the house. She knows the vault is unlocked, but she does not know when the door will swing open. At exactly 3 o'clock, a delivery van pulls up to the curb. A bonded courier in a gray uniform walks up the driveway holding a sealed legal box. I walk downstairs and meet him at the side gate. I sign the electronic pad. I carry the box into the kitchen and cut the packing tape with a utility knife. Inside are the bound, notarized copies of my legal filings and the genetic evidence. My lawyer works efficiently. I extract 3 thick manila folders. The paper feels heavy in my hands. It is the physical weight of objective reality. Outside, the jazz trio stops playing. The sudden silence is jarring. I step to the kitchen window. Richard is standing on the raised stone patio, tapping a silver spoon against his crystal glass. He clears his throat, calling for the crowd's attention. The guests quiet down, turning their faces toward him. Richard beams with pride. He signals for Chloe and Bradley to join him on the patio. They walk up the steps holding hands, smiling for the cell phone cameras pointing in their direction. Richard delivers a speech. He talks about family values. He talks about the sacrifices a father makes to ensure his children start their lives on solid ground. He talks about handing over the keys to the future. Then he spots me. I am standing just inside the sliding glass door. He gestures for me to come outside. He uses a booming theatrical voice. He tells the crowd that a house is just a building until a family turns it into a home. He calls me his eldest son. He asks me to step forward and officially hand over the spare house keys to my sister. He wants the 80 guests to witness my submission. He wants to strip me of my dignity in front of the Holloway family so he can elevate his own status. I push the sliding glass door open. I step onto the stone patio. The guests watch my every move. They expect me to reach into my pocket and produce a brass key. I walk up to Richard. I hold the 3 manila folders. I do not hand him a key. I press the first folder flat against his chest, forcing him to take it. I hand the second folder to Chloe. I turn and offer the third folder directly to Thomas Holloway. Thomas frowns, taking the heavy envelope. Bradley steps forward, his face flushing red, demanding to know what I am handing his father. I turn to face the crowd. I do not shout. I project my voice calmly across the quiet yard. I welcome everyone to the property. I inform the guests that they are currently standing on a contested legal site. I advise them to enjoy the catering because it is the last event that will ever take place here under the current arrangement. Richard laughs nervously. He looks at the crowd trying to play it off as a joke. He calls me a dramatic accountant trying to ruin a beautiful party. I instruct Thomas Holloway to open his folder. Thomas breaks the paper seal. He pulls out the thick stack of financial documents. He is a career banker. He reads spreadsheets the way other people read the morning news. His eyes scan the first page. The emergency court injunction blocking any property alterations. The drafted civil lawsuit for financial fraud and unjust enrichment demanding restitution for a decade of stolen equity. He flips to the second page. A 10-year ledger showing every single mortgage payment, property tax, and maintenance bill originating from my personal bank account. Thomas looks up. The arrogant smirk vanishes from his face. He looks at Richard with cold, hard disgust. He understands exactly what he is holding. He is holding proof of predatory financial fraud. I look at Richard. His nervous laugh dies. I tell him the eviction notice is void. I inform him that if Bradley Demolition Crew steps foot on my driveway Monday morning, they will be arrested for criminal trespassing. I state that the house belongs to the man who paid for it. Chloe gasps. She drops her folder onto the stones. She yells that I am a jealous liar. She looks at Bradley, begging him to intervene and throw me out. Richard's face turns dark red. The humiliation he tried to force on me rebounds instantly. He points his shaking finger at my face. He shouts that I am an ungrateful snake. He yells that blood is thicker than water, and he will destroy me in court for attacking his flesh and blood. I wait for him to finish yelling. I let the echo of his words fade over the manicured lawn. The 80 guests are frozen silent witnesses to a corporate execution. I tell Richard to open his folder. He rips the flap open. His hands tremble with rage. He pulls out the top document. It is not a financial spreadsheet. It is the Ancestry DNA lab report. I instruct him to read the highlighted section. Richard reads the words, 0% shared biological connection. He stares at the black letters. His brain short-circuits trying to process the data. He looks at Chloe. He looks back at the paper. I do not let him process the shock in private. I deliver the final strike out loud. I address the entire patio. I explain how the genetic test works. I reveal that Richard did not show up on the relative list, but a first cousin from the Holloway family did. I state clearly that 27 years ago, during the Spring Charity Gala, Patricia found comfort with the Country Club Committee chairman, David Holloway. I turn back to Thomas Holloway. I tell him to check the second tab in his folder. Thomas flips the page. He sees the printed black and white photograph of Patricia and his own brother, David Holloway, standing together holding champagne flutes with David's hand resting on her lower back. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. Victoria Holloway covers her mouth with her manicured hand. Bradley takes a step back, moving away from Chloe as if she suddenly caught fire. Richard drops the folder. The pages scatter across the patio stones. He looks out into the crowd, searching frantically for his wife. Patricia is standing near the rose bushes. She is frozen. The glass of sparkling water slips from her fingers. It hits the ground, shattering into dozens of sharp pieces. The sound cuts through the heavy silence like a gunshot. The sharp sound of shattered crystal cuts the heavy silence. Patricia stands frozen by the rose bushes, staring at the broken pieces of her glass scattered across the grass. The water seeps into the soil. It is the only sound in a backyard filled with 80 people. The guests are holding their breath. The carefully constructed illusion of the perfect suburban family hangs in the air for one final fraction of a second before gravity takes over. Thomas Holloway acts first. He is a man who has spent 40 years assessing risk and cutting losses. He looks at the printed photograph of his brother David standing intimately with Patricia. He looks at the genetic report confirming the affair. He does not yell. He does not throw a tantrum. He simply closes the manila folder. He treats the entire family like a toxic asset. He turns to his wife. Victoria Holloway understands the silent command. She is the gatekeeper of their social standing. She smooths the front of her designer dress and steps away from the patio heater. Her face is a mask of cold, polite disgust. She looks at Chloe. The maternal warmth she displayed just 10 minutes ago vanishes entirely. She looks at her prospective daughter-in-law as if examining a stain on an expensive rug. She turns to her son and tells him it is time to go. Bradley does not hesitate. His arrogance is entirely dependent on his family money and their reputation. The realization that he almost married the illegitimate child of his own uncle hits him like a physical blow. The humiliation makes his face flush a deep, angry red. He drops his unlit cigar onto the stone patio and crushes it under the heel of his leather shoe. He takes 2 large steps backward, putting physical distance between himself and the woman he was supposed to marry. Chloe panics. The foundation of her entire existence is built on the approval of wealthy men. She sees her future slipping away. She lunges forward, reaching out to grab Bradley's arm. She begs him not to listen to me. She points a manicured finger in my direction, her voice pitching into a shrill, frantic shriek. She calls me a jealous liar, trying to ruin her life because I resent her success. She desperately tries to spin the hard data into a petty sibling rivalry. Bradley recoils from her touch. He forcefully pulls his arm away. He looks down at her with unfiltered contempt. He tells her the wedding is off. He says his family will not be tied to a fraudulent bloodline and a public scandal. He turns his back on her, leaving her standing alone in her pristine white sundress. He walks down the patio steps, following his parents toward the side gate. The Holloway family exits the yard, moving in a tight, silent formation, leaving the wreckage behind. Chloe watches them leave. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out. She looks at the 80 guests, the wealthy bankers, the country club members, the interior designers. They are all whispering. Cell phones are appearing from pockets and purses. The social execution is happening in real time. The golden child is suddenly radioactive. Richard finally moves. He has been standing frozen, gripping the edge of the outdoor bar. His ego, the massive, fragile structure that dictated my entire childhood, is collapsing inward. The realization that he funded, raised, and worshipped another man-child while treating his biological son like a pack mule breaks something fundamental inside him. His face drains of all color. His chest heaves with ragged, uneven breaths. He steps off the stone patio and marches across the manicured lawn. He does not look at me. He locks his eyes on Patricia. She is still standing by the rose bushes, surrounded by broken glass. Patricia sees him coming. The polished, manipulative matriarch who visited my bedroom in the dead of night is gone. She is stripped bare. She tries to take a step backward, but her high heel catches in the soft dirt. She loses her balance and falls to her knees on the grass. She does not try to get back up. She looks up at her husband, her hand shaking, her makeup smearing as the tears finally spill over. Richard stops 2 feet away from her. The veins in his neck bulge. He demands to know if it is true. His voice is a low, dangerous growl that carries across the silent yard. He asks her if she lied to him for 27 years. He asks her if she spent his money on a child that belongs to David Holloway. Patricia cannot form a coherent sentence. She sobs violently. She reaches out with trembling hands, trying to grab the hem of his trousers. She begs him to listen. She tries to deploy her usual tactics. She uses her soft, pleading tone, attempting to convince him that they can fix this. She says they can go to counseling. She says they can keep it quiet. Richard looks down at her hands, reaching for him. The revulsion on his face is absolute. He kicks his leg back, breaking her grip. He tells her not to touch him. He says the word with such venom it makes the nearest guest flinch. He looks at the woman he trusted and tells her she disgusts him. He turns away from her, leaving her sobbing on the ground. He walks blindly toward the front of the house, pushing past the silent caterers, ignoring the whispers escaping the toxic environment she created. I remain standing by the sliding glass door. I watch the chaos unfold. The caterers are discreetly packing up the silver trays. The jazz trio is quietly placing their instruments into velvet-lined cases. The guests are filtering out toward the street, eager to spread the scandal across the city. The beautiful canvas tents stand over an empty, ruined celebration. Chloe drops to the patio stones, sitting in a heap of white fabric, crying hysterically. Patricia wails on the grass, unable to stand up. I do not feel the need to gloat. I do not require a final dramatic speech. The audit is complete. The ledgers are balanced. The truth performed its function with surgical precision. I walk over to the outdoor bar. I pick up a glass of ice water. I take a slow, deliberate sip, letting the cool liquid wash over my throat. I turn my back on the weeping women and the whispering crowd. I step over the threshold, sliding the heavy glass door shut behind me. The thick pane of glass instantly muffles the sound of Chloe sobbing. I reach down and engage the steel locking mechanism. The sharp click echoes through my quiet kitchen. I stand in my house, the house I paid for, the house I maintained, the house I kept. Outside my window, their entire world is burning to ash. Inside, the air is cool, clean, and perfectly still. I place my glass on the granite island and listen to the silence. The conflict is over. The eviction is canceled. 6 months have passed since the caterers packed up their silver trays and fled my backyard. The air carries a sharp October chill. I am sitting on the front steps holding a cordless drill, driving brass screws into a newly repaired cedar porch railing. The neighborhood is quiet. The silence is no longer heavy or expectant. It is just peace. The fallout was swift and absolute. Richard thought the genetic report would save his assets during the divorce, but our state operates under a strict no-fault jurisdiction. The family court judge only cared about the financial ledger. Patricia, ruthless lawyers sliced his remaining wealth down the exact middle. He was forced to liquidate his stock portfolio to buy out her share of the marital estate. He now lives in a cramped apartment behind a noisy strip mall, entirely isolated, holding on to nothing but his bitter, eroded ego. Patricia secured her settlement, but lost her social currency. The society matrons she used to desperately impress now look right through her at the grocery store. She became a pariah in the only world she ever valued. They destroyed each other over the exact same asset they both worshipped above all else: appearances. And Chloe hit a solid concrete wall. Bradley family attorneys forced her to sign a strict non-disclosure agreement. Without Richard funding her lifestyle and without the Holloway fortune to catch her, she went bankrupt in 3 months. She currently leases a dark studio apartment next to an interstate highway and works a retail job selling the exact same designer clothes she can no longer afford. 3 weeks ago, she left me a weeping voicemail, begging for a loan to stop her car from being repossessed. She said family helps family. I deleted the voicemail. You cannot burn a bridge and then ask the person on the other side to throw you a rope. The sound of a diesel engine interrupts my thoughts. The mail carrier drives up to my curb, drops a thick brown manila envelope into my steel mailbox and drives away. I know what it is. It is the final paperwork from the divorce mediation. Richard was bleeding cash paying lawyers and knew he could not afford to fight my civil lawsuit for financial fraud. My lawyer offered him a simple way out: sign the house over to me completely and I drop the fraud charges. I open the envelope and pull out the signed and notarized quitclaim deed. Julian, sole owner, there are no more strings attached. I place the deed on the porch beside my dark roast coffee. I look out over the green lawn. When you survive a family system built on exploitation, you walk away with scars, but you also walk away with sharp, cold clarity. I learned that biology is not a debt collector. A title like father or mother is a privilege earned through mutual respect, not a blank check granted by shared genetics. I learned that you must never fund your own disrespect, because the exact moment you stop financing the people who belittle you, their power over you evaporates. Manipulators thrive on your frantic emotional reactions, but cold, hard facts, bank statements, and legal codes cannot be gaslit. I had to accept that I would never have a normal, supportive family. I had to let the idea of them go. But the empty space they left behind was immediately filled with an unbreakable silence. True peace costs exactly what you are willing to walk away from. I am 28 years old, and my ledger is clean. Thank you for listening to my journey. If you found a piece of your own struggle in these words, or if you simply believe in the power of holding toxic people accountable, please take a moment to subscribe. Hit the like button and join our growing community right here at Sweet Karma Life. Drop a comment below and tell me what is the hardest boundary you have ever had to enforce with a relative. I read every single one. Protect your assets, build your own foundation, and I will see you in the next video.